This is every single Need for Speed game that can technically be beaten without ever changing cars. And today, every single one of those will be beaten in this video. Starting with Need for Speed Underground. Underground begins with the what the hell is this guy doing? Actually, wait, whilst I'm here, this was my first time ever playing Underground, and you have to drive with the A/X button. I had it good growing up in the 2010s because anything besides RT is criminal. Anyway, wait, my apologies, where was I? Underground begins with a compulsory race, putting us in the Integra Type R to teach us the ropes.
Is that your fantasy?
After this whole sequence happens, we get the choice of our first car.
So which one of these is your car?
Our options are the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the Honda Civic, the Peugeot 206, a Mazda Miata, and finally a Dodge Neon. I won't lie to you, Underground is for the races, and I already knew what car I was going to pick to put a roof scoop on.
Now move it. Come here to find the latest races. The race map will show you where all the action is.
Just as she said, this is the race map where we'll access every single Underground race. From here, we choose the event we want to do and the difficulty we want to play it on. For us to complete Underground, there's 111 events that we have to get through. I completed my first race in my new car and got introduced to the rankings. For each game mode, there's a leaderboard, which is what we're climbing to become the #1 Underground racer. Okay, what do y'all think of it? What do y'all think of the first design? It's a work in progress. I ain't got much unlocked, but you see the vision, right? See the vision, right? A little while passed with me getting introduced to the different game modes like drag and drift. This front wheel piece of shit. And soon came the first tournament. These tournaments basically act as signposts throughout the story, and these are what we care about the most. The biggest difficulty bumps are going to come from the tournaments, with this one, of course, being the first one, the rookie tournament. These tournaments in the game are point-based, meaning they'll consist of a few races. If you come in first, you get 8 points, second 6, third 4, and so on. Whoever has the most points at the end of the tournament wins. Even with that in mind, this was only the first tournament, and despite not having any significant performance upgrades yet, we were still more than fine. That victory was where our first performance upgrades came from. When you install these parts, you get the choice of different packages. The different packages have different manufacturers of the parts, and to be real, I have no fucking clue what the difference is. I ain't got a clue, even to this day. Now, a lot of time passes without much commotion. A lot of the races really didn't pose any challenge, even when playing them on hard mode. After finishing that last tournament, we had 7 races completed, and now we're on more like 60. Slap bang in the middle of chapter 3. Well, someone tell that son of a bitch to move, bruh. In that time, some important things were covered. Tournaments were completed, being All Go, No Show, Downtown Series, Saturday Night Drive, Dead Calm, and so on. I also made this design. Now, this one I was proud of. This shit was cold as fuck, no cap. The reason why I've highlighted race 63 as an important step in this story is because it was the hardest race from my entire time playing this game. In continuing the story, I completed the final tournament in Chapter 3, Art Center Sprint Tourney, and continued on into Chapter 4, where really only one thing caused me trouble. This motherfucker's catching me. Don't do it. Oh shit, hey! I still won. Moving past the next few tournaments, we got past those with, thankfully, little concern. Maybe with a little bit of leniency here and there. But then I got to this. This final part of the game is Chapter 5. There were no tournaments, and technically we've finished the game, but there are a select few events left, pinning us up against the best of the best in the Underground. We've already made it this far. I might as well take my chances in the Peugeot. After our rise to fame in the first game, we receive an invitation from Rachel to race in a new city, Bayview. But on our way there, someone with a vendetta against us had other plans for us.
Yeah, everything's cool. I just had to take care of a little problem.
A few months down the line, Rachel reaches out to us again, this time, once again, about moving to Bayview and taking over the racing scene there.
Hey, listen. When you get to Bayview, my gal Rachel will hook you up. She's loaned you her ride. It's at the airport waiting.
The first thing to happen down there is Rachel lending us her 350Z. I ain't gonna lie, I was so infatuated with how good this game felt. I spent a little while just driving her car, because I knew whatever car we were gonna get was gonna be a whole lot worse than this. It was safe to say, after long enough, she got tired of my bullshit.
Hey man, I want my car back. You better haul over here ASAP or I'm putting the word out on you. And that means no more racing till I say so. Get over here, now.
Ah damn, my bad bro, I'm on my way, bro. We introduce ourselves and she leads us over to our choice of car. Oh man, again, these deals on a budget or something, what the fuck, this is stupid. Our choices this time around didn't differ too much. The Peugeot 206 made a return alongside a Ford Focus that was tempting. I'm not gonna lie, but in addition to that, a Toyota Corolla, a Nissan 240SX, a Miata, and a Civic. I couldn't help but think about the potential for customization with the Civic, so the Civic it was. After a new car, we get straight into some races to heavy up the wallet. Nothing challenges us for the meantime. If anything actually, we start to get that paper pretty quickly, with Rachel helping us out. She advises us on what the different type of events do as we start to progress, but not only that, she also seeks out sponsorship opportunities for us that, wait, here was our first one.
Hey dude, I just sorted through the last stack of contracts. A lot of sponsors want to sign you up for the Underground Racing League. So I picked the best of the best for you. Just let me know who you want to sign with.
The important thing about these sponsorships is that it introduces us to arguably the most important type of race for progression, the URLs. The URL is the Underground Racing League. These are where you go against the best racers in the city. These are the worst part of the game, but maybe not for the reason you think. Look, here's the map. It's these yellow races that you'll see. Even when playing on a higher difficulty, this game doesn't pose too much of a challenge, race-wise. The hardest parts I found for myself were some of the later drift, drag, and the URL events. The game is broken down into 5 stages. Progression to each new stage just requires beating enough events, and getting the star rating of your car high enough. By the way, the star shit is so stupid. Oh, except stage 4 to 5, but I'll get to that later. What I did find cool were the star events. I don't know exactly what to call them, but you basically get to take a photo of your car, and I literally just customized this bit too. Come on, look, give him a moment to figure it out. Yeah, give him another moment, give him one more moment, I promise, it's gonna be worth it. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, back to what I was saying. A lot of the race focused events, circuits, sprints, street cross, they were light work, except there were only a couple things I had challenging me. Since this was my first time playing Underground 2, I had to figure out the rating system. Basically, your car is ranked on how customized it is, and the game uses this rating as a parallel form of progression alongside the race completion. But beyond that, the later drifts and drags really started to trip me up. The Civic, being front-wheel drive, really caused me some trouble for the harder drift events, and sometimes I didn't even have the pace to keep up with the faster cars in the drag races. There was no way around it. I really had to lock in. Where does that bring us to? To near the end of stage 4, where the remaining challenge for me was overcoming confusion. Why is there like 20 URLs? But then not just that, when the whole map's done, and I have a 10-star rating, the final race isn't even showing up. Okay, I'm done, but for real though. At the end of the story, the only challenge for me was figuring out what I was supposed to do. It was making sure I did some of the hidden races which were available over the map. After gaining enough respect, we challenged Caleb's crew, taking his team down one by one, and eventually going head to head with Caleb himself.
Fresh out the house, got the beat on suicide as I ride up and down Martin Luther King Drive. Standing tall, looking down on the bloody boys snitching all day. I look around on the clock. Come in, silver and snare, 5 pound on the block. Ain't you ever seen young playing clown in the park?
Okay, we all know how Most Wanted starts. I don't even want to get into it. Okay, he cheated, man. He cheated.
Hey, there's something wrong with your ride. You left a huge oil slick at the start line. You have to end the race fast.
After knowing about what happened to us on our car, Mia helps us out a little, transporting us to a place we can pick up some new wheels. The options for us are the Lexus IS 300, the Fiat Punto, and the Chevy Cobalt SS. I didn't get the extra cash, so no GTI for me. I was just happy to see some different options, to be real with you. But out of all of these, the Lexus definitely caught my eye the most. After buying our Lexus, we went to see Mia, who told us everything to know about the blacklist.
So you found it all right. What do you think? You have to work your way up. You can challenge a ranked racer. Once they're all out of the way, Razor's all yours. Cool? I'll let you get back to business. I'll call you when the time's right. Later.
Realistically, every member outside of the top 10 didn't really pose a challenge, especially if we're staying consistent with our upgrades. It's only when we get into the top 10, I started to see some challenge. So, after starting to take on the top 10, the cops started to catch on to me. The requirements for the milestones began to amp up more and more, and eventually led to me getting busted for the first time. And second. Y'all fuck with the design or nah? I kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie, I like it. Now, the most important part is the concern around getting busted. Most Wanted is a very special game with real consequences to getting caught. Every time you get caught, you get an impound strike on your car. Get enough of those, and your car is gone. Now, I don't know if I really need to say this, but without my car, I can't do what I'm here to do. So we gotta be careful. Besides from that concern, the races and the rivalries really aren't nothing to worry about until we get into top 5 territory. What's this dude's name, huh? What's this dude's name? I can promise you did not guess Eugene. What about this one? Y'all fuck with this one or not? I think the bumper ruins it, I'm not gonna lie. So, we get past Baron, Earl and Jules. However, when approaching the top 5, I was really starting to find a lot of trouble against the cops. Like a lot. The bounty required for the blacklist members was starting to get into the millions, so I had to employ a tactic which I'm sure many of you Most Wanted fans are familiar with. Now, this is good and all, but I still have to escape them if I want the bounty, don't I? Okay, I'm gonna wait for this heli to go, and I'm dipping. Okay, now or never, let's go. That wasn't that bad. Okay, I run this shit. With my bounty progression solved, the only thing that stood in the way were the blacklist races themselves. Up next were Kaze and Ming. Only the top 5 remained ahead of us, and 4 races between us and Razor. Until I had a little bit of an issue. My game crashed. And I hadn't saved for a while. Safe to say I wasn't too happy. You cannot be fucking serious. Oh my god. No! After getting back to where I was coming back with vengeance. I'd had enough of the game at this point, so I was just wanting to get my M3 back one way or another. Next was Webster. I might have run into some trouble on the way, but nothing I couldn't handle. They're manhandling me. Pause. I won't say Webster was easy. He caused me some trouble, but a couple tries and he wasn't anything to worry about. Therefore Webster goes down, and so too did JV with no trouble. Ronnie, however, Ronnie was a little bitch. I'm not gonna lie, for some reason I really started to have a car diff issue with Ronnie. So to make sure I beat him, I had to engage in some body blocking strategy. After the first race though, he started to back off, and eventually we got through. Now, despite having the car I feared most, Bull in the SLR McLaren actually wasn't anything to worry about. He was pretty fast, but wasn't nothing we couldn't get past. Okay, time to take down the big bad wolf. The real opponent here is whether the M3's rubber banding will be nice to me or not. For Razor, there's 5 different challenges you've got to take him down in. The only one of those to cause an issue for us was the drag race. Son of a motherfuck! Look, they just put a lot of obstacles in the way, okay? We still beat you, and we got our car back too. It was actually not as hard as I thought it might be.
It's over, Razor.
I want every single unit after the guy.
Everyone?
Everyone!
About time that I got my respect, it's the butcher nigga. On the night I was born, the rain was pouring, God was crying, lightning struck, power outage, sparks was flying, the real one's here. The young boy that walked with lions around the outlines of chalk where the corpse is lying. Of course I'm trying to revive a sport that's dying.
Oh man, Need for Speed Carbon. What's this guy doing? Oh, that's fair, to be fair. It was loud as fuck. Need for Speed Carbon, man. I love this game. And it begins with us back in the M3 having escaped Rockport, but still being chased by Cross. Until we find ourselves in a little bit of a predicament. Cross gets intervened and we get introduced to Darius. He seemingly helps us in the moment, but his undertone speaks to having other intentions. We also get introduced to Nikki, who is going to be teaching us the ropes in Palmon City. She takes us to the place where we get our first car, and our choice is from a selection of 3. The Camaro SS, the Alfa Brera, and the Mazda RX-8. I ended up going with the RX-8. We're then taught about crew members, and Nikki departs us having left us in Neville's hands.
Later, Neville.
Well, guess it's just you and me.
We're free to progress as we like. Let me bring up the map and explain Carbon's progression real quick. In Need for Speed Carbon, there's 4 areas, however, only this one is available to access at the start. We need to take over this area, and then these areas unlock, and then finally that area at the top. However, these areas are ranked on a difficulty scale. This first area, think of it as Tier 1. These 2 are Tier 2, and the final one is Tier 3. This corresponds with the ratings of the cars in the game. The cars are broken down into 3 tiers, with 1 being the worst, and of course, our RX-8 is Tier 1. I'll leave it at that for now and revisit this later. Area 1 was nothing to worry about, and the cops in this game are pathetic, meaning I focused on choosing events to provide us with upgrades for our Tier 1 car, because the upgrades are also specific to the Tier 2. Tier as well? Tier 2? Tier 1, 2. Once we started to take over the area, someone got notice of what we were doing and wanted to challenge us to a canyon duel. Every time you take over an area, there'll be someone waiting to duel you for the control of the area. Our first challenge was Kenji. Neither his races nor his duel was anything to worry about, but it did act as a good introduction to what kind of challenge these rivals could pose. After taking him down, we officially take over control of the downtown and can move on to the Tier 2 areas. Not only that, it seemed that word of us was getting around and we received a text off of someone wanting to join our crew. We meet Yumi and decide to add her to the team. Out of the 2 tier 2 areas from before, I decided to take on Silverton first, the one to the left. Before even moving ahead, I want to shout out Yumi real quick. Yumi was the MVP of this run. Look how fast she is. Without her help, I genuinely would not have made it past some of the later events. Like, for real. Shout out Yumi, man. Before long, a lot of the Silverton events were taken over too. From this point, there wasn't really any performance upgrades we could get, so the RX-8 we had now was the RX-8 that we were going to have to beat the game with.
Darius, what are you doing? A few more races and he's going to have more territory than you.
Well, hey, good for him. He should be cleaning up his rep. And he's taking care of my business for me. He owes us. Both of us.
You're using him.
I'm not using him. I'm the only one who knows what he's capable of.
Before taking on our next rival, I decided it would be wise to look the part for our next duel. Yo, this might be one of my best so far. This RX-8 is tough. Once taking over Silverton, Wolf came knocking in his DB9, of which, thankfully, despite being slightly intimidated by his car, was nothing to worry about. If anything, his races were actually easier than his Canyon duel. I wish I could say the same for some of the later rivals. We take Wolf down and conquer Silverton. Next on the agenda was taking down Kempton. Kempton is filled with muscle cars and a lot of open road. This, to be honest, worked to our disadvantage. Our RX-8 had excellent maneuverability, but once it was on the straights, it fell behind fast. Thankfully, with Yumi by our side, she made our time against the muscle cars a lot easier. I would love to say Kempton ended up being harder than I expected, but it didn't really pose anything out of the ordinary. I soon found myself at the foot of Angie's doorstep, who challenged me for the control of this territory. Now, Angie's race was actually fairly difficult. Because of there being a lot of straight sections, she had the opportunity to pass me, but with clever use of the shortcuts, we narrowly take the victory. As our reward, we get an easy canyon race to follow that up with. Considering the differences between our cars, I was able to deal with the corners a lot easier than her. We got word of some developments happening with our crew, but I was not abandoning Yumi for anyone. It turns out Darius was against us this whole time. After realizing we're encroaching on his territory, he tries to shut us up for good, but Nikki comes to the rescue.
Look, I hate it when people say I told you so. So here goes. It seems that some of your team was there the night that you left. They tell a different story than the one I've been hearing from Darius.
I get Nikki as a crew member? Oh hell yeah, of course. Finally, we had Rosewood, the hardest area in the game. I'll admit, even with Nikki, some of the race focus events were next to unbeatable, considering our tier 3 competition. Luckily, I was able to take clever advantage of the easier events to complete, such as the speed traps, the checkpoints, and the drift events, to get around conquering the territory. It wasn't easy, but I did, with Nikki's help, eventually find myself somehow conquering every part of Rosewood, meaning there was one final thing standing in our way. Unfortunately for us, this rival showdown isn't as straightforward as the others. To take down Darius, we first have to beat every other rival again, twice, and only then do we get the chance to race Darius, and possibly challenge him to a canyon duel. There was no other way around this. Every single one of these guys were faster than me, especially in their new cars, but we had Speedbreaker, and they didn't. Making sure I used my Speedbreaker effectively meant that even the hardest opponents were nothing, even in our, at this point, awful RX-8. Darius, however, was another story. I thought those guys were fast, but Darius's R8 was unbelievably quick. Like, genuinely, the rubber banding was absurd. It took multiple tries, there's no denying that, but his first race, after optimizing my run well enough and taking all the shortcuts and using every ounce of Speedbreaker I could, eventually I beat his R8. However, there was still the canyon duel remaining. The difficulty of the canyon races is infamous, but why? Because of the lack of speedbreaker and nitrous available to the player. As I mentioned earlier, a skilled speedbreaker user can excel with even the worst of cars, but in a canyon duel, there is nothing that you can use. I tried over and over again, countless times, but to no avail. I was so close to beating him, but there was just no way I was actually able to beat his R8 on the canyon. I wish I could tell you there was some triumphant victory that I could flip the script with, but there wasn't. Carbon actually beat me. Darius's R8 was just way too quick down that canyon. Oh shit, okay, we're here in ProStreet, ready to take down Rio and become the Showdown King, but let me break down to you how this run's gonna look. For those unfamiliar, this is basically ProStreet's progression map. We'll be going all the way from this side to take on Rio Watanabe. However, that isn't without a couple problems. We'll get to those in a second. Starting with the introductory race, we're driving Ryan Cooper's 240SX, which is actually going to be our car for the entire of this drag. We're going to have to find a way around that, only being able to use the 240SX. Without any drift and speed events for the moment, that means the composition of our race days available to us at the moment are made up of both grip and drag events. For grip, we have that exact 240SX from earlier, so no issue there. The problem is, we need a drag car. And a drag car we have. Luckily for us, you're able to buy multiple versions of the same car, and categorize the new car as something else, meaning I went shopping for a new 240SX and made it strictly able to do drag races. I made it unique with its own design and upgraded it as much as I could for the moment. It wasn't exactly slow either. Let me show you a drag clip from later in the game. That's an 11-second half a mile drag. Oh, you want to see quarter mile? Bet. Yeah, it turned out that the 240SX was actually one of the best drag cars in the game. Not only for drag events, but also the wheelie events that show up later too. It's safe to say that we'll never need to worry about the drag events. Getting through the beginning race days was nothing to expect difficulty from. As previously mentioned, it was just the grip events and the drag events for now, both of which the 240SX dealt with pretty well, meaning that I was pretty much coasting through the game at this point. I wasn't able to find too much difficulty anywhere, which brought us to the second major race day, where drift events get introduced. A new type of event means another 240SX we're going to buy. Luckily, we are able to use this car to drift, because some of the cars in the games are actually restricted to being unable to participate in drift events, but we're all good with the 240. I spent some time designing it and got out to our first race day involving drift events. This was also around the time I unlocked the first King event. Aside from Rio's final showdown, there's also 4 different King events respective to the different type of events that are in the game. These aren't compulsory and all we care about is taking Rio down, but to be truthful, I did fear that one of the King's showdowns we actually wouldn't have been able to complete, but I'll get to that in a bit. Now, by the way this run was going so far, you might think that ProStreet didn't end up being too bad, which, you know, maybe we actually had a generous Need for Speed game. No, I was wrong. I could not have been further from the truth. After getting to the third major race day, we were introduced to speed events. Momentarily, we were gifted an R34 to just familiarise ourselves with the type of event. But once I had to use the 240SX, it was all downhill. Now, we were quite lucky that the 240SX was a great drag car, but somehow, at the same time, it is literally one of the worst speed cars in the game. Not only do I have to worry about the usual semantics going on in speed races, but I also have to deal with a painfully slow car that can't even keep up with the competition. This is mostly due to its lack of a 6th gear. and even with the 5th gear tuned to be as tall as possible, it still was not passing anyone. This put me in a little bit of a predicament. For the time being, it wasn't too bad of an issue, for the fact that no race on its own is really compulsory. To complete a race day, you actually only need to complete around half of the events it offers. To dominate, if the selection of race days is thought through, you're able to avoid a type of event if you don't really want to do it. That, however, brings us to Rio. I was able to avoid speed races for the most part and continue through to progress the game. However, for the final challenge, you need to take Rio down in every type of event that there is. And it's pretty synonymous for Rio's speed events to be some of the hardest in the entire game. I had no idea what I was going to do. The good thing was, it was the only type of event we needed to worry about. The drift, the grips and the drag events, with proper upgrades on each of our other cars, we could get past them. The speed events were the only ones in which we had to worry about for Rio. As it stood, no matter what I did, I could not beat him. He was faster than me off the line, faster top speed than me, and the way Rio works is that if he's ahead of you, he pretty much never crashes, but if he is behind you, then his AI is racked up to 110%, meaning he also has a higher chance to crash. So I needed to think of an idea. Oh my god, it worked. Oh my god, fucking holy shit. Wait, I've won. I just need to make it to the end. Now, yeah, one speed event was out the way, but there is one more for Rio which we need to complete as well. The second posing a different issue. It was a high speed run, meaning there's different checkpoints throughout the run, and the racer with the highest congregate speed being clocked at each checkpoint wins. This wasn't a game of running him off the road. I literally just needed to be faster than him. Now, in ProStreet, there's actually, I don't know if you can call them hidden, but hidden parts in the game, unlocked in the later events when beating race days. If you're lucky enough, you'll receive a stage 4 part, the highest beforehand being 3. These stage 4 parts really change your car into something else. The most important part is that these stage 4 parts for the 240SX specifically give it a 6-speed transmission, and that 6th gear is exactly what we needed to get enough speed and beat Rio at his own game. Once I got past those speed events, we challenged Rio to drag, grip and drift events as well, but they were nothing compared to the challenge proposed by the speed events, meaning after enough tries, Rio was taken down, all with the same car we had at the very start of the game.
This is it, people. This is where it all comes down to skill. Ryan Cooper has come all the way from winning late-night street races to becoming our new showdown king. Oh, yeah! And Rio Watanabe has given up his crown and his car, folks. Ryan Cooper has won it all. Ryan Cooper has become the new showdown king.
Immediately, to begin Undercover, we're thrown into a 350Z mid-pursuit. No, unfortunately this isn't our car, this is our car. Another 240Z. I mean, I liked it, but not that much. A couple races go down, and I start to learn the different event types, and I get the chance to partake in a pretty important race. After dominating it, not only do we get introduced to Hector Mayo, but we also get the choice to pick one of the vehicles from the race to take for our own. One problem, we're forced into this choice. But look, compromise with me, okay? Look what I did. Y'all good with that? I mean, hey, I think that's okay. After a couple more races, we unlock the first parts shop, the street parts shop. After a little while, the story continues to develop, but more importantly, we unlock a job in which requires us to use another car. God damn it. this isn't the only time this happens either. There are parts in which we steal, scrap and drive other people's cars to continue the story. I've decided to allow this now, but for only instances that correlate with the story. We still need to do every single race with our 240Z. After customizing my car, I did run into my first race, which was causing me some difficulties. Once again, the same issue from ProStreet finds itself reoccurring in Undercover. The 240SX gear ratios are way too short. Even when extending them to optimize for top speed, I start to top out way too quick. Okay guys, okay, this is supposed to be a friendly race, guys. Okay, another pink slip race goes down and another car we receive, this time around an Audi TT. Now, I know I'm already pushing boundaries, but I did have to use the TT to escape a police chase. Look, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. The first chance I got though, I swapped out. I swapped back to the 240SX. The story continues to develop, and the next pink slips come sooner than expected. Once again, we win the race with largely no difficulty, and pick another car to not use. But around about this point, we begin to get introduced to events requiring us to take down other drivers. These are the important events in Undercover. In the process of doing so, we came across some black sedans that may have known who we actually were.
I've seen black sedans like those on the wharf at Port Crescent. But wait, do you think they went after Hector and Zach the same way? Did they kill them?
With the continued progression of the story, we unlock more and more parts shops offering up better and better parts for our car. This honestly led us to having a pretty easy time during the second half of the game. There were a couple of events that I want to highlight nearing the end of the game which were hard, like actually causing me a lot of trouble. Oh my god, he's just pulling. There's no chance. I've got no chance. Luckily for me, no specific event was actually compulsory in this game other than the story related ones, which even when in my 240SX didn't cause too much trouble. Meaning if there was a race I couldn't do, I actually could try an alternative one like a pursuit or a sprint instead of an outrun. This leads to the final sequence of the game. The final part of Undercover requires us to steal multiple cars the person we're trying to take down. This included a McLaren F1, a Zonda, a Murcielago and even a Veyron, all of which were compulsory. Following this, we're required to take down Nickel Rogers, Rose Largo and G-Mac himself, the one we've been after this whole time. The story throws one final plot twist at us in the form of us getting betrayed by the one that brought us in the first place. This requires us to use one of those black sedans from earlier to escape her setup. Now, you'd also have to use this when taking her down, but I was able to switch back to my 240SX very sneakily to complete the final event in the game in the very first car we started in.
Great work. Way above anybody's expectations. I know what it's like going deep undercover. Too easy to lose sight of who we are. Why we do this.
Everybody put 3 fingers in the air. The sky's falling, the wind is calling, stand for something or die in the morning. Section 80, HiiiPower.
Now, Rivals is a little bit interesting. You can play as both a cop and as a racer. However, Rivals might be the only cop and racer Need for Speed that we can beat without switching cars. To do this though, we're not going to be concerned with being a cop. If we can beat the racer career without switching, I'd say we're good. This is our first speed list and this is our first car. A nice car, I gotta admit. These speed lists are a form of progression in the game. Now, there is a lot of these that we've got to get through, and this is our first one. For our first speed list, we have to do one for both the racers and the police. It's just what the game does. Just look away. After finishing up in the Benz, we get to our first proper speed list to kick off our progression. When choosing a speed list, you get to choose either a racer focused one, a pursuit focused one, or one focused around driving. You can also see what car you unlock after completing the speed list as well. I also spent some time customizing and upgrading my car with the speed points we had gotten from the first 2 speed lists. Now, if you're watching this, you either watched this entire video up until this point, of which I'm very grateful for, thank you, or skip to Rivals because you might like Rivals or whatever it might be. Whatever circumstance you might be in, I don't want to waste your time. Rivals was easy as fuck, I'm not even gonna cap. I thought it'd be more of a challenge, but literally the entire Racer campaign is pretty easily beatable with this Cayman S. However, let me show you the one or two things that did cause me some trouble and confusion. Number one, these motherfucking cops, bro. This game is not a racing game. This shit is Battlefield, bro. Look at this shit. But aside from all that, the only other thing was one particular part of the Racer campaign. During the story, tensions rising, the police force began to use our own cars against us. What we decided to do was to combat that by stealing one of the best cars that they have. This, however, meant we had to use this Kona save. I wasn't exactly complaining, but after this we were right back into the Cayman S. Eventually, this did lead us to the final couple speed lists, one of which was actually quite challenging, earning 250,000 SP in one session. This did take me a minute. In technically the worst car in the game, having to rack up over 250,000 speed points in one session and deal with the cops long enough to survive, this was probably the hardest challenge a speed list had to offer. With the correct choice of pursuit tech, I was eventually able to return to the garage with enough speed points. Something helpful, even though it feels like cheating, is that you can enter the garage in this game mid-pursuit. So even if you do have cops on you, as long as you pull up to the garage, you can enter it. So with that in mind, the last couple speed lists were almost a joke. After returning to the garage one final time, the game proposes one more challenge, to complete the Grand Tour. Despite being a nearly 30-mile race, the only thing it took was time.
I got one girl from Philly, I think her name Nikki, and I fuck with Nikki cause she not too picky and she not too choosy, but sometimes she bougie. I play with a kitty until it gets sticky. I'm moving the beat, chill like an alien. Chop with the 50, my Uzi is ready. I turn to the boss, can't deal with no middleman. Anthony Davis don't deal with the belly.
Ah man, this game is just absolutely beautiful. This is Need for Speed 2015. Currently we're in the prologue, getting introduced to the characters of this story, but soon enough we get the choice of our car. This is what I call a good selection. To be truthful, any one of these choices would be valid, but what I was feeling for our final game was the Civic on the left. We complete our first race and unlock the garage. From here, I customise my Civic a little and prepare for what's ahead. Yo, shout out to the dude that made this. This livery is cold as fuck. Now, Need for Speed 2015 is a little bit interesting. The game provides you with a multitude of different character plots throughout the campaign. Our job is to get through them all and beat the final race to finish the campaign. That wasn't without difficulty, however. I began working on Spike's and Amy's events first. In the meantime, I also unlocked some others as well, but my focus remained Stern for the moment. This was going great until I ran into my first scare. One of Spike's events requiring under 250 brake horsepower. Now, my Civic at the moment was nowhere near that, considering the upgrades I was putting into it, but thankfully, you were able to take the upgrades out, and even still, I found myself with only 6 horsepower to spare, and I wasn't able to go any lower than this. So let's hope that there's no more events requiring a low brake horsepower. Now I thought I'd have some room to breathe after that, but straight afterwards I ran into this. This event required us to use another car, which we had in our garage because it was gifted to us, but now there is literally no way to complete this event without that car. But for the moment, I wanted to see whether or not I could get away with just not doing it. So I went on about my progression, just not completing Amy's line of events from now on. This was around about the time in which I started to take on and progress through both Manu's and Robin's career as well. For another little while, things were once again going pretty swimmingly. Spike's events had transferred over to Magnus Walker, but retained its focus on the speed aspect.
This guy, man.
However, the Need for Speed gods were out to get me, because once again, we encounter an event requiring another car to be used. Meaning all of our work to progress through Spike's and Amy's progression now was meaningless in the face of these events. I decided to continue on with the other careers and avoided this event like I did with Amy's. Wait, Alex Mole? Yo, shout out Alex Mole, man. W man. Now, I had actually found myself in quite the unique position. You see, here was the last event in Manu's career, and here was technically the last event in Robin's as well. They weren't here to cause any difficulty either. We got past both of these events with no trouble, meaning we were able to beat both Manu's and Robin's career too. Leaving us with both of these events we couldn't do, the Outlaw career, which I'll get to in a moment, and this event. This event engages Eddie's Challenge, a series of the 15 hardest events in the game. Now, I thought these events might pose a little bit more of a challenge than they did, but we were able to take down every single one of Eddie's challenges, all in our very own Civic. Leading us to the Outlaw career. This, as it stands, was our last hope. We couldn't progress through the means of Spike's or Amy's career, so in this moment I was hoping the Outlaw career would lead us to where I was trying to go. In terms of the contents of the events, the Outlaw career is definitely the most bespoke career path, requiring you to engage with the cops more so than racers. However, with how suited up our Civic was at the moment, there was only one event which caused me to worry. Under 200 horsepower? Wait, I can't even get under 200 horsepower. It turned out one of the Outlaw events required us to use a car under 200 brake horsepower. Now, I don't know if you remember what I mentioned earlier, but from testing, the Civic I was driving couldn't get below 243. I seriously had to rack my brain to think of something to get me out of this. Oh my god, I've got an idea. Holy shit, yes. Oh my god. Yep, you saw that correctly. Why that is, I don't know, but it turns out if you buy the very same Civic, it starts at 197 brake horsepower, just under the 200 limit we needed. With that trouble behind us, we continue on to complete the Outlaw career with largely no more difficulty. Now, I was praying that there was something that was going to happen and help us out with our Spike and Amy situation. Unfortunately, there was nothing. In order to get to the final race and complete the campaign, you had to complete these two events. The good thing is that there were no more of their kind. Only these two events required different cars. So with that in mind, there wasn't anything else to challenge us in this campaign. Following those two events, we complete both Spike's and Amy's career and receive a phone call off Robin to inform us of the final two races in the campaign. Despite the fact it was up against some of the hardest competition from the story, our Civic had almost 1000 brake horsepower at this time. Neither these nor the next lot had any chance.